what I'm saying is that shocking. Just because, lots of wise men have said that doesn't mean that it is the truth. When the new appears, there is such resistance to it because Namaskaram.
My name is Christina.
Yes.
I'm hearing you for the first time. I'm following Indian Swami since 2 years. The method he's providing is called samuran meditation. I organize a lot what you're saying in that method as well. But there's one thing that we do meditation every day for half an hour, and we start the meditation saying, I'm a holy soul, I'm a pure soul, 3 times. And as I understand you now, there is a difference between, that there are 2 or, I just wanted to hear what you can say to that.
So that is actually the traditional approach. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. That is what Swami Vivekananda said. That's what a lot of the great spiritual masters have said over the past centuries. And what is being said here is, you are not the soul, because if you are the soul, then the body is not actually of any consequence whatsoever. The I that is saying I am the soul is actually the identity, and that identity is a creation of ego anyway. So the very idea of saying I am the soul is a creation of ego. What is said here is that this system, this body, including everything, its ability to think, its ability to eat, its ability to identify, all of that is this. I am this, and this, I am this, is in surrender to the soul, which is an individualized cosmic identity, the Antaratman. It's been spoken about for thousands of years. The idea that I am the soul comes much later, when there is a transcendental experience and an identification with Supreme Soul, samadhi states, enlightenment, and so on. But that is a foray into the cosmic. It is not an entry into the thisness of the system. The very fact that you say, I am the soul, would lead to the question, who is that I that is saying I am the soul? And that I that is saying I am the soul is already a creation of the ego. So rather than saying I am the soul, what is said here is, this is in surrender to the soul. And that is the fundamental difference. So there is no identification that I am the soul. There is the acceptance of thisness. And that's what it is. And this is in growing surrender. It's just in surrender. Every time the ego tries to take over, it moves into a surrender state. It moves into more and more surrender to the soul. So there is a, if one looks at it from a purely philosophical point of view, one would have to say that these are almost diametrically opposite philosophical positions. I'm not coming at it from the point of view of a position at all. It's an experience, and it's knowledge, and it's my ajna to speak it. So this experience of this surrendering to that, which is not that, but that. is what is going on, not you are that. It's a fundamental difference. If I am that, then there is no surrender. Then what is the samarpan? Who is surrendering to what? If you are already that, Shman Bhava. If you're already that, then who is surrendering to what?
Well, I feel that feeling to be the soul makes one sort of surrender to the whole, like the soul knows what to do, and actually at that point I think it's similar to what you're saying, but because of that sentence, you're finding out the difference again. I don't know what to do. But
see, the thing is that what you're actually undergoing now is that it's like a shock to the system, because you've been in a practice where you're identifying with soul. I am soul.
Actually, more in that meditation than in the daily life, I would feel like I'm trying to connect with that soul and to ask it for help.
Yes. The thing is, where is the samarpan? Where is the surrender in the practice? In your practice, you said that, you have the samarpan meditation, right? Where is the samarpan? Who is surrendering to what? Samarpan means there are two involved. One who is the surrenderer, and one that which is being surrendered to. So,
like it's the ego surrendering to the soul. That's how I.
so then you can't say I am the soul.
Yes.
It's a philosophical conundrum in a sense, because what I'm saying is that all those statements are ego statements, and they're ego statements arising from the culture of enlightenment, which is 1,000 years old, 1,500 years old. It's a culture of enlightenment, because the moment you are in enlightenment, you identify with the soul. But the fact of the matter is that the soul is not you. Your identification has to be solidly with this. And then you can be in the dance, the lila of what we call the Radha Krishna lila. Radha is this and Krishna is that. And that is where the lila happens. The moment you say, I am Krishna, then there is no lila, there is no surrender, there is no bending down. And just because, lots of wise men have said that, doesn't mean that it is the truth. Because then it's a simple question. Okay, you're in Samarpan. Okay, who is surrendering to what? I am surrendering to myself. Why do I have to surrender to myself? I am. If I am, then that means I am the soul. So then what is this body in the mix? What is it doing here? It has nothing to say. It better leave, better go. It has nothing to say. Because I am the soul. So what I'm saying is that shocking. In the sense that it is shocking when one has undertaken these practices for years, and there are paramparas which are old that are carrying on this, but just because they are carrying it on doesn't mean it represents the truth of our existence now. It made sense perhaps at that time because nobody questioned it down to that. If you have had an enlightenment experience, if you have had a dissolution of identity and you're in a samadhi state, what does that mean? That means you lose identity. This thing loses its identity. Then obviously you're going to think, I'm that. Which is what the great masters did. Nisargadatta Maharaj wrote a book, I am that. Yes, it was his experience. It was a solid experience. But if one deconstructs it to the actual solidity of the thisness experience, then comes the question, who was it who said he's that? applying the very questioning of Neo Advaita Vedanta to that experience. Okay, who is that then? Then this is that. But then if this is that, then what is this? Know what I mean? When the new appears, there is such resistance to it because the old is trying to perpetuate itself.
Namaskar.
Namaskaram.
My name is Peter.
Yes, Peter.
I'm here for the first time. And the message that shocks me, rings a complete bell. I feel it's very true. And my question concerns about acting. So surrender means no action. And on the other hand, the sadhana means action. And I'm confused between the two.
So surrender is karma, it is action. Because it is an undertaking of the identity. Peter does something. What does Peter do? Peter surrenders. To what does Peter surrender? To his soul. When does he surrender to his soul? He consciously surrenders to his soul in moments when he detects that the ego is trying to take over his system. So Peter starts surrendering to the soul. So he is taking action. From the impulse of the soul, he knows if the action that he has wanted to undertake is to be undertaken or not. So again he's taking action. It's karma, 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 karma. Everything that this does is karma. So it's actually very simple. It's always in action. It's in repose or it's in action. It's in repose or it's in action. And that action is the expression of this system of the impulse of the soul. So the more in surrender Peter is, the more he will act from the truth, and the less pain there will be, and the more joy there will be. If Peter allows the ego to take his action over, there'll be more pain and less joy. That's the dance that's happening. The dance between Peter and his master, his antar guru, his soul. If he flows with his guru, there's joy. If he resists his guru, there's suffering.
So, in this way, you can validate what's happening.
Yes.
See if there's pain or joy.
Yes. It's a very, very tough sadhana, a very tough practice also because it is a new practice. The philosophy that is underlying this is not a philosophy that was created and from which the experience happened. It's the other way around. The experience is ongoing, and because the experience is solid and real, a solid and real philosophy emerges out of it, which is how it can be even transmitted conceptually. No? It is shocking, yes, because it is accepting the thisness of this system, but not in the way of the patriarchal inheritance of the Abrahamic traditions, which actually relegates responsibility outside the system, but it is keeping this and it is bringing in that indispensable posture, which is surrender. It's indispensable. It's indispensable. It's the only posture. Surrender, surrender. Bend, bend, bend. Bend, bend, bend. Surrender. Shman Bhava. Bend, bend. That's the posture. Because if I am that, then where is the surrender? Where's the surrender?
See, I have a tendency to be very proud. So this is the complete opposite.
You're proud when you're unsure. You're unsure when you're not in tune with the truth. You cannot be unsure if you're in tune with the truth. How? How can you be unsure? Underlying that experience of being unsure is fear. When you're in touch with the truth, there is no fear in the system. It's about practice, finally. Just once in a day, once. It's about taking this practice with that feeling of love in your heart, that I just want to live in the truth. I want to be the instrument of the Master. Not about I am and all this is not me, this is not me, this is not me, this is not me. This is a Neo Advaitin aberration of what actually Advaita Vedanta is at all. If at all one even wants to recover that philosophy. Excavate it, actually. Ayushman Bhava. So just to discern, is this action coming from the truth or is it coming from the ego? It sounds very simple, but it's a very challenging sadhana. It's also very rewarding because that joyousness that starts to grow is just, it's unbelievable actually when one starts to experience it.